Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In this inquiry of who am I, the fundamental problem is what is the motivating factor? What is going to be inspiring us to ask this question, who am I? Because the problem is there is no utility that we can see in understanding who am I. Okay, I don't know who am I, so what? So what is the loss of it for me? If I don't know medicine, there is a loss I can understand. If I don't know engineering, I can understand the loss. If I don't know law, I can understand the loss of it. The question is, what is the loss that we can experience, that we understand by not knowing who am I? One side. Another problem is the mind is constantly going outside. As a result, it knows, it believes, it understands everything around it. So the mind starts believing, when I know all that, it's enough into itself. I know you, I know this, I know that, I know the things around me. I know people around me. Now, what is very, very interesting is, what is it that has made you to believe that you know me? Yeah, all of us can ask this question, who am I? Sir, that I don't know. But none of us have a doubt. I don't know who is my wife. I know my wife. I know my husband. I know my neighbor. I know my son. I know my daughter. I know my boss. I know people around me. I don't have any doubt on that. I know all these people. Now what is interesting is, how do you know that? Whatever knowledge that you have about me, how did you get that knowledge? How you got to know that? You know me, right? But how do you know me? How much do you know me? Will depend only on what? Only on one factor. That is, how much you have been thinking about me. How much you have thought about me will give you the knowledge of me. How much I have thought about my son will give me the knowledge of my son. Imagine, one of your guests who had come to see you, you ask him to sit in the class and he looks at me. What will he know of me? To that stranger, what is his knowledge of Ishvara? Nothing. You have X amount of knowledge of Ishvara. Another person will claim, I have X plus knowledge of Ishvara. What do you know of him? I know him more than you. On what basis? The basis is only one. The basis is how much I have thought. How much I have thought constantly. It is so interesting to see that. How much knowledge you have about me. Now, how much knowledge you can have about you. Same rule is applied here also. How much you have thought about you. One. Two. In what way you have thought about you is the way you will have knowledge about you. In what way you have thought about me is the knowledge you will have about me. If you have been thinking constantly that Ishwaran must be spiritual, you will think of me as a spiritual person. That has got nothing to do with whether I am spiritual or not. Right? Now, in what way you have been thinking, how much of thoughts you have entertained about me, to that extent you will have knowledge about me. What nature of thoughts that you have entertained about me, so will be the nature of knowledge about me. That is why one person will call very good, another person will call very bad, one person will say intelligent, another person will say dumb, one person will say nice person, another person will say horrible person. Same being is treated by many people in many ways. In what way you are going to have will depend on what and how you have been thinking. Now the mind by nature goes outside. That's the natural direction of the mind. You need to put a lot of effort to turn that mind to inquire about who am I. Now here, the accent is more with reference to the question is yours, then the answer also must be yours. That answer cannot be someone else's. For your question, you have to find the answer. That's what happened to Ramana. One fellow asked, can you explain what is the bliss that you are experiencing? That Atmananda. What is that Atmananda? Can you explain? Can you explain? One fellow was asking, insisting. Ramana said, if you are so interested to know, why don't you find out? If you are so interested to know what is that Atmananda, find out, no. He says, that and all I don't know. I wanted to know, but you find and let me know. You inquire, you investigate, you learn, you experience, and tell me. That way you can never identify this. Since the focus is constantly going out, this is where, without having any knowledge about yourself, you claim to have knowledge about people around you. You have no knowledge of yourself. You have no clarity in understanding of what is your nature. What are you? Who are you? Without that knowledge, I claim that I have understood people around me. That claim is known as attachment. That is what is referred as attachment. The opposite of that is love, where the understanding of mine about me flows to the other. That is called love. That is why I say, when you get attached, you are living an irresponsible life. It's an irresponsible behavior. Attachment is referred as Thomasic, irresponsibility, heedless. Imagine, no, I don't even imagine a person who is supposed to do his work, he is forgetting that and he is doing somebody else's work. What do you call him? He is supposed to be driving the car. Instead of driving, the fellow says, I will go to kitchen and help in chopping vegetables, if he says. His job is, that's irresponsible fellow. The responsibility is not to have attachment. Now in attachment, what do we do is this. This is the knowledge that I claim, that I know about people. Why do you do that? Why are you interested about people around you? Why you are focusing on, it's like, why are you interested in the neighbor's house? What is happening? Why your attention goes to your neighbor's house? What is happening there? What is happening here? What is happening there? All that gossip. Why are you interested in all the gossips? When will you be interested in all the gossips? Only when you are not paying attention to what is happening in your house. When you are not paying attention to your house, you will start paying attention to what is happening in the neighbor's house, gossip. Same thing happens here also. When you are not having any idea, there is no vision, there is no goal in life. When you are lacking that vision in life, there is no mission to your life, then you will have a lot of time, spare time will be there. When you are having a mission, when you are living with a particular mission, then you will not have time. There will not be spare time for you to waste. When you are lacking that, then what will happen? Mind will start entertaining thoughts with reference to people outside. So that is why he insists on who am I. That's why this inquiry. What is me? I wanted to know what is myself. Why? Because when you have that knowledge of who am I, then when you are investigating there, you are so engaged and you are so lost in that. You don't have time for other things. Otherwise, you will have a lot of spare time. You will have a lot of time for you to work on. You will have a lot of time to waste. Gossip. How do you do that? By knowing more and more about others. By knowing more and more about others, mind gets more familiar, that other looks more familiar to you, and nature of mind is it will keep moving to anything that is familiar to it. And more familiarity, more and more. Otherwise, why do you get attached? See, per se, there is no joy or sorrow in any personality, isn't it? Per se, what is a joy? What is a sorrow? Once you start entertaining that relationship, based on the nature of relationship, joy and sorrow comes. How do you entertain that relationship? How the relationship got entertained? How that relationship got established? By the way you entertain your thoughts. I entertain favorable thoughts with reference to you. I will start experiencing joy from your relationship. I start entertaining unfavorable thoughts. And so interesting here is, when I am entertaining one type of thought, it goes without saying I am entertaining the contrary also in avoiding. I like this type of person when I say, automatically that means what? I am not liking the opposite type of personality. But in life, I have to encounter both. I will encounter people of this type, people of that type. In fact, the same person will carry both these qualities in them. Now, that's where life becomes painful, suffering, misery. And then we attribute that misery to the world, to people around us. So how this whole thing started, sir? The whole thing started from inquiring, wanting to know about people. Now, what is the solution? Vedanta says, what's the solution for it? Use that same wanting instead of other, have the desire to know what is happening inside you. The same desire with which you inquire into what is happening in the neighbor's house, pay attention to what is happening to your house. Solution comes. That's this inquiry. This attachment, the deadly quality. It makes you believe so many things. How the whole thing started, sir? It started with this casual thought. That's what Krishna says in the Gita. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa. Angastesho bachayate. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. Yes. How this all started? All this started by musing on the objects. Dhyayataha. He says, just go on thinking. Solution is what? Go on thinking. And that's what he gives here in the topic. Says, the drift in religion. Says that religion got drifted away from the main purpose. The purpose, the main direction of religion is to make us investigate and inquire and probe and move in this direction. Instead of moving here, it drifted away from that path. And that's the topic he gives now. Okay. The very purpose of religion is to give us the knowledge of God or the self. I've told you there are two investigation types. Either case, it is the same thing. There is no difference. One is you start from outside, you come inside, or you start from inside and go outside. Either case, it is the same thing. You start by investigating who am I, you will get to know who is God. You start the investigation of who is God, you will get to know who you are. So it's the same thing. That's why we keep on changing that. Sometimes we'll say God, sometimes we'll say self. Don't get confused. Right? Now, the very purpose of religion, he says, is to give us the knowledge of God. Religion is meant to impart the knowledge of God, knowledge of the Supreme Self within you. Immediately he comes, he says, immediately you think God means which God? You'll ask, which God? All this. No. It is meant to impart the knowledge of God and the Supreme Self within you. But who is supposed to give you that knowledge and the manner in which the knowledge is supposed to be imparted to you, there is a drift. So he says the drift had happened. The entire topic, what he is going to be describing and explaining is the drift had happened from the manner in which the knowledge is to be imparted, what knowledge itself to be imparted, and the manner in which the knowledge is to be received. So three things. I lack that knowledge. So someone has to give me that knowledge. Knowledge of what? What are you? So what is the job of religion? There is confusion. There we have drifted away to something else. Two, we have drifted away from the method in which the knowledge is to be given. And three, the knowledge to be received in a particular manner. There also we have drifted away. There is a way to give knowledge and there is a way to receive that knowledge. What is to be given, drifted. The manner in which it is to be given, drifted. And the manner in which to be received, drifted. Accounts for the total chaos in the name of religion in the world. That's all the topic is. If you say, so what is the drift in religion? Only three aspects are there in religion. He says, what is this? In which, first thing he goes to explain how the knowledge which is supposed to be given made a mistake. Mistake from the direction of the teacher. Two, mistake done from the direction of the student. What is the mistake of the teacher and what is the mistake of the student? The teacher's mistake is what? Two. One, the very purpose of religion is to give these two things. Instead of giving this, they got involved with giving so many other things. Instead of giving the knowledge of God or the knowledge of the self, they have been giving us what? Doctrines and dogmas. See, doctrines were given, the dogmas were given to us. And as a result of that, what had happened? Says, all the spiritual witness says. How, like he gives the example of this bonsai tree. A tree which is supposed to be growing, pine tree, which is supposed to be huge. It is just about 1.5 feet. 1.5 feet is too high actually. It is just about a feet height it is. But they say it is 50-year-old tree. How can 50-year-old tree be like so small? How they do it? They keep clipping the roots, the rootlets, which is supposed to dig deeper into the soil. Is not allowed to dig deeper. So what they do is they go on cutting it. And he says, such a heartless practice. And those who are doing it, will get annoyed actually. Nonsense. Like Like we see, in the office, they have a fish. A fellow have a fish tank. Oh, why do you have a fish tank there? It's a stress buster. It is a very good stress buster for you. What about for the fish? Can you imagine a person keep moving up and down whole life from morning till night? All that he can do is what? Keep on going up and down in that 2.5 feet tank where he is supposed to be in the river, in the pond, in the ocean. They don't belong to this space at all. Like some of them, bring this, Siberian dogs to Chennai. A dog which is supposed to be lying in the snow, comfortably he will be rolling on the snow there. No problem for him. You bring the dog in Chennai and put this fellow. Poor thing. It is torture actually for them. You see, these things. Like people have these pets. These people have this, There's such a heartless practice. Inhuman practice, he says. Is a heartless, unnatural practice because that's not nature. It's not natural. It is away from nature. You just throw the seed on the soil, it will grow into a huge tree. How will it grow? It will grow only so tall. How? Because the roots dig deep into the soil. Same way, the spiritual knowledge also can grow in height. Spiritual stature of people can grow only if that knowledge is allowed to dig deep into their personality. See, you should go to the depth. The problem is the length of study is treated as superior to the depth. That's the cutting. That's what he says. They don't allow that to go deeper. Because you go into the depth of it, you are in trouble. Because that person will start outgrowing. When they start outgrowing, it becomes a problem for us. It becomes a problem for me. He says. Like this is example of people, reading this scholastic study. Read the scriptures. They go through the length of study. So many things. I've studied this, I've studied that, this book, that quotation, this quotation. You memorize this. Now, it's not that you should not do all those things, please. Immediately, don't take it the other way around. It's not that they are not supposed to be done. Okay. But doing that is not going to be helping a person to grow spiritual. You can never gain the knowledge of God in that manner. That's all he says. And the problem is, when you highlight the importance of the length more than the depth, then subsequent generations will go only for the length, which is superficial one. You need that length, but the length cannot be compromised. Depth cannot be compromised for the length. Length is just to hold the depth. See, that's what he is giving here. It says, allow themselves to be influenced. And this is the teacher's mistake. The students make another mistake. The mistake of the student is they don't test anything. They just accept. Just blindly accept the teachings of others. There's blind acceptance. Now, when we say this blind acceptance, I'm just using the word very carefully here. Because blind acceptance. Many a times we ourselves had referred earlier that acceptance is one of the great qualities. It's a great spiritual maturity, that is acceptance. But here that's not what is referred. It says people just accept whatever is being told by others. What is the difference? What is wrong in that? I'm not going to dwell much with reference to the teacher side because that's not our problem, right? Let teachers work on that side. Let us concentrate on where we can make mistakes and correct that part. So at least one side can be worked about. Why they do what is they are supposed to do, Allah, is not our concern. We are not sitting here as a teacher. We are sitting here as a student here. So I don't want to dwell much on that because dwelling much will look, a little interesting, but it will not be educating. It will be useful only to keep criticizing people. It's not meant for that, please. Now, this is given to us to inquire into where we are going wrong. That knowledge that is accepted without testing it. That information that is given to you needs to be tested before accepting. Without testing, when you accept, that's called believing in it. Belief. That's called blind acceptance. If it is not tested, how will you know the validity of it? A knowledge, an information that is given to you needs to be validated. What is going to validate that? That is the testing. That's the investigation. You see, that's the effort. Now the students have drifted away from that. In religion, what is drifting? You have started accepting the teachings even before understanding it. You see, acceptance should come after understanding. How does understanding will come? That needs to be tested. What is the testing of it? Is to investigate and inquire. Whatever the scriptures are saying, that needs to be investigated. That needs to be inquired. Are we doing that? That's all the question is. Shankara says must be correct. I'm not saying whatever Shankara says is wrong. Okay. Ramanuja says therefore it must be correct. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says bhakti. What is bhakti? Bhakti is singing, bhajan, kirtanam, and nardanam should go hand in hand. If kirtanam and nardanam is not going hand in hand, then it is not bhajan at all, he says. So you have to sing and dance also. Why does he say that? That and all we don't know. He says that no. So what are we supposed to do? Singing and dancing. All of us also singing and dance. And then you see another person not dancing. What is the conclusion we come to? Tyagaraja is not a bhakta according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why? Tyagaraja is only 50% bhakta. Why? He was not dancing. He was singing, correct. But he was not dancing. Therefore, Now what? Why does he say that? What is he saying? Do we investigate? Do we inquire? I'm not saying that, what Chaitanya says is wrong. Now we need to understand what is he trying to say. Now do we pay attention to that? We straight away accept. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says means it must be correct. Then comes the real problem. Then Tyagaraja comes. Right. Now, is Tyagaraja Bhakta or not? That contradiction comes. That is why we find in the scriptures, the very teaching itself is given with a lot of contradictions. Deliberately. There is a deliberate contradictions we find all the scriptures. All those masters have been speaking. We don't pay attention to that. We don't investigate. At least by that contradiction, you should pick up and inquire. How these two things going together? This is not. There's no thinking we do. How? On your own, you have to think. When we refuse to think on our own, the scriptures will force us to think by contradicting itself. Now, you have to start thinking. If you don't investigate, you may wonder, what is the problem, Ishwaran? Why should you do all these things? Suppose if I don't do all that, what will happen? The scripture says that knowledge is highly volatile. It will disappear. Why do you have to test it? Why do you have to validate? Why do you have to investigate? Is to retain that knowledge with yourself. The problem for us is we are not able to retain that knowledge. We hear so many things, but nothing stays. Why? Because the nature of that knowledge is volatile. Since the knowledge is so volatile, it will evaporate. So how can you hold? Only by you making that effort to investigate, to inquire, to do that free thinking, original thinking. If that original thinking is not there, why we are not thinking? Again, we go back. We say, okay, we are not thinking all these things. Why we are not thinking? Why we are not, even though it disappears so quickly, also there is a lot of contradictions are there, inherent, inbuilt in the scriptures, still that doesn't trigger us to think. Why? For you to start the thinking, what is a fundamental requirement? Fundamental requirement has to be what? There has to be a desire to know. See, essentially, there has to be the desire. No, questions comes from that wanting. I want to know, what is it? Only then you can ask these questions. Otherwise, you will never ask these questions. When you are not making that effort, why we are not making that effort? Because essentially we lack that desire to know. That is why earlier he said, you have to have the question, who am I? Since we are lacking that fundamental desire to know who am I or who is God, our problem is for these two questions we have answer. For other questions only we don't know answer. What happens after death? We don't know. Who created the world? Of course, God created the world. Answer, done. What is this? What is that? Everything else we don't know. Other things we don't know. How the object is falling, we don't know. How this is happening, we don't know. How many things you don't know. But two questions in life, we know the answer perfectly. Who is God? And who am I? Of course, I know. Since we carry that fundamental belief that we know already, but then you may say, you may wonder, then why are you coming to the class then? You may say, sir, if we are not having the fundamental question, why are we sitting in your class? God only knows why you are sitting. I don't know. Right? Don't ask me. So then why are we sitting? It's a good entertainment. We say. You have accepted the teachings of the scriptures without putting in that effort. After understanding, if you have your acceptance, then that is a life of a spiritual path. That's a life of Krishna. He could accept everything effortlessly. He could accept the things. Whereas in our life, our acceptance at all is what acceptance? All passive acceptance. Passive reconciliation to life. That is what we understand as acceptance. But acceptance of a wisdom, acceptance of a master is very different. Our acceptance is what? Resignation. We are mentally resignated. Why? Because more and more life started shattering our expectations. You start lowering your expectation. That lowering of my expectations, after my expectations got shattered time and again, I say, I have accepted life as it is. What do you mean by I have accepted life as it is? I tried to change my husband. 25 years I attempted, failed. The 25th year wedding anniversary, she says, I've accepted my husband as he is. That's not acceptance, please. Acceptance is like Krishna's life. He had the capacity to accept anything that comes. He could accept as the things come. Praise comes, accepted. Censure comes, accepted. Respect is given, accepted. Rejection, accepted. Victory, accepted. Failure, accepted. Every aspect of it we are able to accept. That is Krishna. How, sir? Symbol of Krishna is what? This is a flute. What is a flute? Hole both sides. Both sides of hole. It freely accepts the air to flow in and out. There's nothing it carries of its own. That is Krishna. That's why we call him Purnavatar. Krishna is yes. Now here, how our acceptance of ours is more in terms of without making that effort. Why we are not making that effort? So interesting. Like a lot of people say, Bhagavad Gita class nalla irukum. Vedanta Treatise class is bore. Why? Same fellow. It's not that I say something here, something there. It's the same thing I say. It doesn't make any difference. Textbook is just an excuse. We just use these textbooks only as an excuse for us to start. Why does it appear like that? That looks more and this is not. What is the reason? The same truth is spoken, but when it is spoken in a language which is familiar to you, doesn't inspire. When that same thing is spoken in an unfamiliar language to you, looks so inspiring. That's all. That's why many times you will find people getting so inspired when they perform rituals in the house. They do. 70% of the ritual is only what? I am taking this and this is what I have keeping it there. This is what I am keeping it here. If you literally translate, he says, I am taking out the banana and keeping it for you. Now what are you keeping? I am taking one rice and keeping it for you. That's all he's saying. What an inspiration you get for that. Huh? You turn that direction, turn this direction, do this, do that. That's all we do, actually speaking. 70% is only that. But you see people doing the ritual with so much of devotion. But you do the same thing in a language which is familiar to you, what happens? What happens to that inspiration? That's what investigation is. That is what we do. Free thinking. That's what he means. He says, drift in religion. We have moved away from this, from the essentials and to the non-essentials. This going through this testing, we say you have to test this knowledge. Means you should go through that idea in different ways. Thinking over and over again, he says. Reflect upon it over and over again. That's called testing. Testing is to reflect, to question, to going through that same thing, various ways of thinking. That's called testing. When you test it, and what is interesting is, more ignorant we are, more it will look correct. Tragedy. That's what earlier we have studied. This Thomasic intellect, we saw the personality chapter. Those who have not seen, go through that portion, personality chapter. There, he explains about 3 types of intellect: Sattvic intellect, Rajasic intellect, Tamasic intellect. He says, what is Tamasic intellect? Thomasic intellect means the intellect that clearly sees the wrong as right and the right as wrong. Best part of the Thomasic intellect is the clarity. Thomasic intellect has such a clarity. Understands the wrong as right and the right as wrong. What is this? Thomasic intellect understands what running behind the world is right and running behind God is wrong. You can run behind God when? After retirement. After your life is settled. When you have nothing else to do in life. Not that nothing else to do. Nothing else can be done by you in life. Right? Then you sit for Vedanta class. The moment you get one project, a fellow asked me, he came and told me, next class I'm not coming. I said, sir, next class I'm not there. Can you record and send? He was asking. I said, what happened? Why you are not coming for the class? He said, I have to go for a wedding. I said, your wedding? He said, no. He says, his neighbor's brother-in-law's sister. That fellow said, my neighbor is there. No, yeah. I thought neighbor's wedding. Illa. Neighbor's brother-in-law. His sister's wedding. By mistake, that fellow saw him when he came to give invitation to the neighbor. So he has extended the wedding invitation. He says, now, having invited, how can we not go? As though if you don't go, the marriage is going to be stopped. Who cares whether you are there or you are not there? They are going to go. Then why this one project? Neighbor's brother-in-law, sister's wedding is enough for you to. That's called running behind the world. Running behind God. That's what Prahalada says. Prahalada defines bhakti. Beautiful definition he gives for bhakti. Prahalada, the king of bhaktas. He says, the intensity with which you wish the welfare of your body, intensity with which you wish for wealth, the intensity with which you wish for the well-being of your family members, with that intensity you wish for God. That's called bhakti, he says. Beautiful definition of bhakti. What is bhakti? Where is that intensity we have? You say, also, if God also can be known, okay, along with the world, it's called Thomasic intellect. The intellect which is totally confused. It's a wrong thinking. Wrong in the sense not ethically. Don't take it as wrong in the sense, social, ethical. Not in that sense, it's wrong. Wrong in the sense, the intellect understands in the sense there's no gain in it. Okay, by knowing God, what is going to be the gain? Suppose if I say, if you know God, all your life problem will get settled. That God we are all interested. See? So no one is interested. God. That's called selfishness. The whole focus is where, sir? On myself. What do I gain? What do I gain? That's what this olive tree is. That hermit. Fascinating statement. Laid I on him no conditions. Laid I on him no conditions. I did not put any conditions in that poem, Olive Tree. There are two hermits wanted to have an olive oil for their prayer. So they planted the olive seeds. So one fellow's olive tree perished. Another fellow got that olive tree. So the first hermit goes to the second and asks, what did you do? How did you get it, man? He said, laid I on him no conditions. He who made it well knows what it needed better than a man like me. I don't know, man. He knows. The one who had made it knows better than a man like me. You understand this? It's a big thing. Lidomia, he says, the just gods are not moved by weak pity. It's a huge understanding. I'm just giving some examples for us to ponder, that's all. You see, just giving few thoughts. You say you got to think. Now what is there to think? Yeah, bhakti means this. Chaitanya says that. Prahalada says this. What is there to think? Yeah, correct. Laid eye on him, no conditions. Now, do we go through life without conditions? Every time you transact with life, you have conditions. What is the conditions? Your expectations. What is your expectations based on? Your desires. What is your desires based on? Hmm? All your desires are what? I want this, I don't want that. That's all. I want this to happen and I don't want that to happen. And so interestingly, every time you say, I want something to happen, it goes without saying, I don't want something is hidden there. I like this means I don't like that. Opposite. So your whole life, how are you living? Living in this polar opposite between likes and dislikes. Keep jumping all the time. I like this, I want that, I don't want that. I prefer this, I don't prefer that. I want this to happen, I don't want that opposite to happen. So when that opposite comes, what happens to you? So your whole life you keep going through this excitement of joy, sorrow, joy, sorrow, joy, sorrow. And what we don't understand is the intensity of joy that you can experience only in the backdrop of the intensity of sorrow. So when you say that I want an intense joy, what are you asking actually? Intense sorrow. I want to live a happy life. Means you can get a chance to experience happiness only if you have experienced sorrow. To the intensity with which you have experienced sorrow alone, you can experience joy in life because they are related. You can experience. That's why the joy of smoking that cigarette after 45 days of vratam, there is a tremendous pleasure in that cigarette. Now, after 9 months, there is no joy of that same cigarette. Why? So, if you are asking for joy in life, what are you asking actually? Sorrow. Now, what are you going to ask in life? That's what that hermit says. Laid eye on him, no conditions. Say. No conditions. I don't put any conditions on him. On him means what? On life, on nature, on God. What he should do. But every time you go to temple, what do? Give me this, give me that, do this, do that. What are you doing for? You go to temple and do puja. Immediately they ask, whose name? My name. One archana tattu the fellow buys. One coconut and 2 bananas. And that fellow will give the list of people in the house. 15 fellows. This name is this nakshatra, this name, this nakshatra, this name, this nakshatra, this name, this nakshatra. You give one coconut to God and you expect him to take care of 15 fellows' life. That also what? Everything you should ask for. Ayus, Arogyam, Saukyam, Dhanam, Dhanyam, Bahuputra Labham, this one, that one. With Dirgha eyes, complete eyes also I want, this I want, that I want, everything I want. Remember, sometimes, I've heard them, few very mature people, they don't do all this. They buy this one, they go and give that plate to the priest there, and they tell him, do Archana in the name of God. I said, in the name of God means what? To do any Archana, what is needed? If I go and do an Archana, I have to give my family, or my gotra I have to say, and then my name I have to give, and then my nakshatra I have to give. Now these people go and say, in God's name you do what? Which gotra that fellow belongs to? Shiva, Kabalishwara temple they show, they say Kabalishwara belongs to which gotra? There's no gotra for him. There is no name also for him. Which name you will give? Because he has 1,000 names. Of the 1,000 names, which name you are going to take and give them? And which nakshatra he belongs to? That is also not there. Then what? How these people do, this? They don't do actually. This public don't know this. They don't do. There is no such thing called that way. But people will go and do what? I am doing Archana for God. Periyar or what? To give Mangala Sasanam for God. There are fellows, devotees who blessed God. We go to God for taking blessing. This man is, one step above. He says, I bless you. Why you bless me? I bless you, man. Says. Fascinating fellows. How many conditions we put on life. It's fascinating to see. Every aspect of life we say, I wanted like this, I wanted like this. I wanted this way, I wanted this way. And what is the real tragedy? I want this, I want that, I want this, I want this. The real tragedy is, after some time, the very same thing that you have asked for, you say, I don't want that. What is it that you have asked for? This is the real tragedy. Suppose if you say, I wanted this, and rest of your life you stay with it, there's no problem. With so much of desire, I want this mobile phone, I want that mobile, I want the mobile. You buy that mobile phone. After some time you say what? The same mobile I don't want. I want something else. So much of desire with which you get married. After a while, you don't want that very same person. I don't want. The person whom you didn't want is the same person you will want at other time. How you live your life. Don't take it for granted. Investigate, it says. When you want something in life, this is the problem of desire. When you say, you don't live your life on desire, means what? You desire something. When you're desiring, what is it, sir? Two problems are there. Essentially, what is the problem? When I'm asking for this, unconsciously, I'm asking for the opposite. So, the intensity with which I'm asking for this is the same intensity with which I'm asking for the opposite also. So, life will be presented to me, what? Both will be sent to me. That's why nobody wants sorrow, but everybody has to encounter. Why? You asked for it. You demanded it. How did you demand it? When did I demand? When did I demand suffering in life? When did I ask for sorrow in my life? I never asked for sorrow. I want only joy. I've been praying only for pleasure. I've been praying only for harmony. I've been praying only for peace. But what comes without a war, peace is not possible. Isn't it? One. Two. This is called depth. A statement is made there. What is the statement? Desire is a problem there. Attachment is deadly, dangerous. What is the problem with that, sir? Another problem with attachment is what? Is the very same thing that you liked so much. The very same thing that you wanted so much, dreamt of so much. You will dread to face the same thing. You will hate the very same thing. This is called depth of knowledge. Now, how do you do that? Only by investigating, only by you thinking about it. You have to probe. Without you reflecting on this, reflecting on these things, accepting it is the drift in religion. Yes. So the drift in religion is what? One, the very agenda of religion got drifted away. Evolution is the agenda of religion. Realization is the agenda of religion. God realization or self-realization. That's the goal of religion. That's the purpose of religion. Drifted away from that completely. Welfare of the body, mind, and intellect has taken over. One. Two, drift in the method in which the knowledge has been imparted. How the personalities have taken over the principles. The scholastic knowledge has taken over the spiritual understanding. The doctrines and dogmas has taken over the very purpose of religion. 3. Drift in religion from the student perspective is accepted blindly without a proper investigation. All the teachings given by the teachers, they are accepted blindly without proper investigation. Drifted. So you have to come back to religion. You have moved away from the main track, main road. Come back to the highway. Don't keep traveling in the kacha. Come back to the highway. That's the idea here. So don't go away from the purpose. Don't go away from this. So as a student, we need to ensure that we don't jump into this. Examine the things per se. Don't get the teachings colored by the teacher's personalities. The greatness of the teacher should not be coloring the teaching. Examine it, investigate it, test it out. After that will come understanding. That understanding will give acceptance or rejection, doesn't matter. We don't care. What comes after understanding, you may accept, you may not accept. That's not our problem here. But before you go into that state of acceptance, agreement, don't jump into agreements. That doesn't mean you have to disagree. Immediately we go to the opposite. The one we say, you don't have to, it's not agreement that matters here. Then immediately we'll say, okay, now am I to disagree? It is not disagreement. It is investigation. Example, definition of bhakti, definition of bhajan. A devotee. The hallmark of devotion is what? Is the singing the glory of the Lord. What is the hallmark of that? This Then suddenly we meet Tyagaraja on the way. He is simply sitting, he is not moving. Now comes the confusion. The same way, you have seen few other ideas also. Like that, we have to take every idea by idea, investigate, come back, and then accept it. Then you are on the track. So come back to it. Says. We'll see you in the next class. Thank you.